We are back in Berea here as the Browns are on their bye week, and that means the bye week press conference for GM Andrew Berry. And of course, Deshaun Watson was the topic today for the Browns GM. And Mary Kay, he didn't really want to get into the future in general. He certainly didn't want to get into Deshaun's future, but he also didn't rule out the possibility of Deshaun Watson playing for the Cleveland Browns again.
Yeah, we peppered him with all kinds of Deshaun questions, and we got a few little tiny crumbs. One of those was, as you mentioned, that it is possible that Deshaun will be back here playing some football for the Cleveland Browns, but I didn't necessarily take that as a referendum or a vote of confidence that that's going to happen. He also said, we were all on board with the trade. Everybody always asks me, well, Jimmy Haslam made them go out and get Deshaun Watson. So he reiterated that we were all on board with this. And then another big takeaway is the fact that they're not going to make very many decisions until they see how he recovers from the ruptured Achilles.
Yeah, and Ashley, he didn't sit up there and say, yeah, Deshaun's the future, yeah, Deshaun's the starter, or anything like that. He just simply left that door open for him to play for the Browns again. He didn't say what that could look like, but that's sort of what Andrew Berry's doing right now. There's a long time here between now and when he has to make some of these decisions on Deshaun's future and this organization's future at quarterback.
Yeah, there is. I mean, to Mary Kay's point, though, I did find it interesting that during his bye week press conference last year, or it wasn't the bye week press conference, but I guess after Deshaun Watson got hurt, he talked about last year that, we saw what he could do in that Baltimore game. It just seemed like that was very much the messaging coming out of last year when Deshaun Watson was injured. This year, there's not that sort of similar performance, I think, that anyone can hang their hats on and point to and say, hey, this is the guy, this is the player we think he's going to be. So I do think that's an interesting comparison between a year ago when he suffered the season-ending injury and this year.
Now, Mary Kay, I thought one of the moments, there weren't very many that was interesting moments and when Andrew was giving answers today, but I think one of them was when you asked him about his future and Kevin Stefanski's future, he actually took most of the question to sort of stand on the table for Kevin Stefanski and make the case for why the head coach of this football team should certainly be here long term.
Yeah, I thought it was his most definitive answer of this whole press conference, which lasted about 25 minutes. He basically said, he's an amazing coach. He cited his 2 AP NFL Coach of the Year awards, talked about how he was the fastest to reach 2 and that most of these guys either win a Super Bowl or a championship game or end up in the Hall of Fame. And he said he is part of the solution going forward. So I thought that was more clarity than we got on anything else.
Yeah, I mean, Ashley, look, when a team is 2-7 and things are going badly, these press conferences can often turn into, I'm going to make the case for myself. I'm going to, put myself in this light and let everybody kind of fight for themselves. And I just thought it was very interesting that Andrew took that opportunity instead to make the case for Kevin.
Yeah, I definitely thought that it was interesting and definitely was the clearest answer that we got in, as Mary Kay said, about 25 minutes with the GM this morning. And I mean, I also think it's important because we were asking Kevin Stefanski earlier this week basically about how he felt about his job security. And, even though these guys are on the first year of their extensions, I think we all know anything can happen when your football team is 2-7. We've already seen the Saints fire their coach, for example, the Browns' next opponent. So it was definitely interesting to hear that from the GM.
Okay, as you'd expect, the vibes, not great here. We got to talk about vibes. It's my first video back here. But Mary Kay, when you look at sort of the message Andrew delivered, and you always kind of look for overarching things, and I just feel like he generally avoided giving this big picture state of the union. He really wanted to stay focused on the remainder of this season. He tried to avoid answering long-term questions. I just thought it was very interesting that he didn't really want to take a big picture look at things today.
No, he really didn't. And I think he probably can't right now because they know that they have decisions to make at quarterback and they don't know how they are going to approach that just yet. Once again, he left open the door for Deshaun Watson to come back, but we all know that they have to find another starting quarterback for next year. You cannot count on Deshaun Watson being your starter. So there are so many ways that can look by the time the season gets underway. But now we do know that Kevin is going to be back. Andrew's going to be back. So these guys are going to be the ones making those big decisions. I thought there was one other significant takeaway, and that is, even though they are under the crushing weight of the salary cap implications from Deshaun's contract, he said, we can still build the team. So I thought that was big.
Yeah, and Ashley, just, again, Andrew's got to keep the focus on this season, and that quarterback discussion is so big. But though I guess the one thing he did say is this doesn't necessarily mean you have to wipe the slate clean. This isn't the NFL. This isn't Major League Baseball. You can turn things around quickly in the NFL.
Yeah, I thought that answer was something I even said basically on our podcast yesterday about when I kind of went on my rant about why I don't agree with the segment of the fan base that is basically begging for this team to just give it all up and tank. So I think Andrew put into words why. In the NFL, that's maybe not always the best strategy. And a big part is, guys in those other leagues, they're so young when they draft them and bring them in. Obviously, baseball has their whole minor league system to see guys grow. But the NFL, you're typically taking players older. You kind of know what they are. And one piece, especially one quarterback, can change a lot for a team very quickly.
Okay, he didn't say much, but we're going to cover it all at cleveland.com/Browns.